So you find that the African Renaissance, in as much as it sought to turn around the trajectory of Africa, it has not been as effective as we would have wanted. And I believe it's also because of this emphasis on the behavior. Now, the African Renaissance sought also to reconnect the African person with the African religion pre-colonial. Now, I believe it's a fallacy, if I may use that word, because we need to appreciate that the African society has gone through so much transformation. Like we said last week, that we need to appreciate that one's worldview is not static, it's dynamic, it's constantly changing as much as that individual is being exposed to external forces, external influences. So in that regard, you find that the African worldview, life worldview, is also transformed over the centuries. And you'll find that even the context itself has also transformed, such that to think and to hope we can yet again go back to an African religious worldview that is purely, if I might use that word, purely African, that is pre-colonial, that is 14th century African religion worldview. I think that's a fallacy because of what we have gone through as Africa. So we need to appreciate that each of us has a worldview and a personal story about how we perceive reality. And how we perceive reality as Africa has been informed by our spiritual journey over the past 100 years. It has been informed indeed by our traditional African religion, just as much as it has been informed by our colonial Christianity, just as much as it has been informed by the African indigenous church worldview, and indeed by Pentecostalism. So we need to appreciate that the African leadership worldview has transformed over the centuries. And what we are seeing now being manifest in the behavior of our African leaders, or in the behavior of those in positions of influence, of authority, is really just a reflection of how our worldview is transformed over the years. So we find that in practice, we use our worldviews without necessarily being conscious of it. So we use it to construct complex conceptual frameworks in order to organize our beliefs about who we are and about the world we live in. So our perception or understanding of our identity as Africans, without realizing it, is informed by the journey that we have walked spiritually over the past centuries. So you find that our worldviews, they serve as maps or models to explain how we view the world and why we act as we do in it. So inferentially, our leadership theory and practice is informed by our leadership worldview. So you find that what the African Renaissance, it sought to address the behavior. If it is to achieve its intended purposes, it needs to address the belief side. It needs to start by looking at the belief, the worldview, the religion, the culture of the African people, so as to be able to impact the values and ultimately the behavior of the African leaders.